Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the Crash and Ride podcast. I'm Patrick Ferguson. I'm your host. This week's guest is Zack Hembree, lead singer of Hembree and the Satan Sisters, former guitar player in several bands, Stone Mountain Freeway, Tar Nation, Grim Pickens, and Zack and I were in the band Music Hates You together. Music Hates You was this sort of infamous metal punk band from Athens, Georgia that raised a lot of hell, and we broke a lot of equipment. We got kicked out on more venues than I care to think about, and we played a lot of house parties, a lot of basement parties, got in a lot of fights. It was a really, really rowdy band, and we talk about that some in the interview. If this is your first episode of Crash and Ride, welcome. Crash and Ride is a long-form interview podcast where I talk to musicians who've survived anxiety, depression, and addiction. The idea was that if I could get musicians to sit down and talk openly and honestly about the things that upset us, make us angry, make us sad, make us feel lonely, then we could, not continue to suffer in silence. We could see ourselves in the sufferings of others, and we could all start to get better. If you have questions or comments about the podcast, you can always email me directly at crashandride@protonmail.com. That account is encrypted. It's private. Nobody reads it but me. I promise you I'll protect your anonymity at all costs. I will never say your name on the air unless you give me permission to use it. I'm a professional musician. I play drums in a bunch of bands. I have a ton of shows coming up. Pinky Doodle Poodle, the band from Tokyo, for whom I play drums, has finally got their visa clearance. They're coming back to the States. They're going to be back a week from tomorrow, and we're going to start playing shows like every weekend. I play in the power pop band 5/8. 5/8's got a bunch of shows scheduled. I also am going to be filling in for Erica Rickson, who was probably my favorite guest of this podcast of all time. I'm filling in on drums for her band Motherfucker because she's got to go out of town. I'll announce all those at the top of the next show. I don't have a comprehensive list in front of me. Also, I'm playing South by Southwest in March, and I'm playing a zillion shows. Then I'm playing with Pinky Doodle Poodle, 5/8, and two bands from New Delhi, whose drummer couldn't get visas, so it's going to be a wild time. Like I said, I'll have a complete list of dates coming up soon. Here are a couple of quick announcements. Crash and Ride is brought to you in part by Greer Amplification. Greer Amps builds the best boutique effects pedals available. If you're looking for an overdrive, boost, fuzz, compressor, or tremolo that is rugged, road-tested, and at home, on stage, in the studio, or in your living room, Greer has a pedal for you. Nick and his staff strive to build the best products around with the best tone you've ever heard. They believe in their products, and they stand behind them too, backing each one up with a lifetime warranty to the original owner. Each Greer Amps product is hand-built in Athens, Georgia, USA. Go to www.greeramps.com or visit your favorite music retailer today. Crash and Ride is also brought to you in part by Jittery Joe's, local coffee roaster based in Athens, Georgia. They have a special espresso blend named after the podcast. You can get Crash and Ride espresso whole bean or ground from our website at crashandridepodcast.com. You can also get t-shirts with the Crash and Ride logo and the Loud Guitar Save Lives slogan underneath. Those are $20 plus $5 shipping. They're at crashandridepodcast.com/store. The other night my band 5/8 played with the punk band She He He at the 40 Watt. She He He is really great, by the way. You should definitely see them. Noel Schuck, their guitar player and one of the singers in that band, did an interview with Crash and Ride back in the day. I can't remember the exact episode number off the top of my head, but just look back. Noel Schuck, she's the most rock and roll person I've ever known. She has an amazing singing voice, and she just slays on the guitar. She's a phenomenal guitar player, total rocker. She's great. But at that show, I smashed my glasses. And, it may come as a surprise to you, but podcasting isn't exactly like a really lucrative profession. And so when I reached down and could only find like a piece of my glasses underneath my drum seat, I thought, oh no. Broken glasses are like the end of the world, man. And I put a thing on my Facebook page like, hey, if you were going to buy a Crash and Ride t-shirt, now would be a great time so I could go buy some new glasses. And man, thank you so much, everybody who stepped up. Like I sold like 10 t-shirts. Like, boom, I had enough money to buy glasses. I have some new glasses. Thank you. That was amazing. I really appreciate it. All right, this week's guest, Zack Hembree. He's just a mountain of a human being, like just a big, burly dude with a beard, covered in tattoos. We crisscrossed the Southeast together. Music Hates You many years ago. And yeah, that was we talk about that some in the interview. It was a wild time. Us, Noah Ray, this incredibly powerful performer that he was the singer and guitar player, and there was a guy named Forrest who was this phenomenal bass player. He's now a restaurant owner downtown. Like, we all went on to have somewhat normal lives, which is kind of amazing if you were in the thick of it at the time. It didn't seem like that was a possibility for any of us. So Zach's got a new band. I played one show with them when they needed a sub drummer, and it was fun. It was pretty wild. It's kind of punk band, very heavy. We played the Caledonia. It was not without drama, but I won't get into that. Zach came out to the house. We had some coffee, turned the mics on, and had an amazing talk. I thought it was really good. We talk a lot about his early childhood, how disrupted that was, how chaotic it was, about how his grandparents were the rock in his life, which I'm beginning to see a theme here with people like me. A lot of us are really close to our grandparents. We talk about jail. We talk about redemption in the form of finding the family that you were meant to be in. And we talk a little about his beautiful wife, Carrie, and his wonderful kids. Such a great talk. I think you're going to enjoy it. Let's jump into our interview with Zack Hembree. I'm here with Zack Hembree of Hembree and the Satan Sisters, formerly of Toro, formerly of Music Hates You, formerly of
That's fun.
Yeah. You've been in a zillion bands. We've known each other now about 15 or 16 years.
I think maybe longer.
Yeah.
I think I met you when I was you're right, about 16 years.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, right.
I met you when you were my age, I think.
How old are you now?
36.
Yep.
And I was like, man, he's old.
Right.
And now you're still older than me.
It's God willing. It'll be a long time that I'm older than you. Man, so I joined Music Hates You. It was already a going concern. You were the lead guitar player. Noah Ray was the guitar player, singer. Forrest Hetland, bass guitar. And we played a million shows.
Mm-hmm. And some of my best memories are those shows.
Yeah. Yeah. But everybody's life was just super messy then.
Yeah. Well, I think yours might have been the most intact.
Yeah, but I'm not like lording it over anybody. It's just an accident at that point. Time and good fortune put me in a pretty good position. I don't claim any moral superiority or anything.
No, I don't think you did.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your. I know you're Athens native.
Yes, sir.
From over in Whitehall.
Yes, sir. Well, Whitehall and Whitehead.
Yeah?
Yeah. I split my time between those two areas.
Yeah. And that was like, that's some old school, like working class, hillbilly shit over there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a mill for years.
Yes, sir.
Did your grandpa work at the mill?
He did. He was the head guy at the mill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for 30 years.
What was the mill?
It was called Thomas Textile, and it was a baby clothes making place.
Yeah. My grandma worked in a textile mill.
Really?
Do we ever talk about that?
I don't know.
She worked at Fieldcrest.
I think we did talk about that.
Yeah. Fieldcrest was outside of Eden, North Carolina. And when I was born, there was no Eden, North Carolina. I was born in a place called Leakesville, North Carolina. There was Leakesville, Spray, and Draper. They were all kind of clustered up there. Fieldcrest was there. West Point Pepperell was there. Miller Beer opened a factory there. They made Lucky Strikes just across the state line in Danville, Virginia. It was a bustling, busy place with lots of work. It is not that anymore.
That sounds exciting.
What year did the mill that your grandpa ran close?
I think 1989 or 88.
Yeah.
Some of my first memories are hanging out there, like buying Cokes out of the Coke machine for like a quarter and stuff like that.
Was it a bottle machine? It
was a bottle machine, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And it had one of them was the cans, and it was still like the flat top cans, like the rectangle cans. You remember in the 80s?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that. I still, when I think of cans, I still think like, remember the pull top that you would pull out,
mm-hmm.
And then you'd have this extra piece of aluminum to
what do you
drop
do with that
for someone to step on, No, I remember those bottle machines because they kept the drinks so cold,
mm-hmm.
and you'd put your coin in, and when you're a little kid, you're like, am I going to be able to like pull? The bottle was held in there by friction and rollers, and you had to wrestle that thing when you were little, man.
My mother used to tell me you're going to get your hand cut off in that.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Probably still dream about that?
I wasn't scared enough.
Yeah. But you grew up pretty much with your grandparents, right?
Well, my grandparents, they owned the house, but they also housed my dad, my mom, and my two brothers and I.
Yeah. And your dad was a gospel singer, right?
Yeah, he was a gospel singer, amongst a million other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was what he was known for,
Yeah.
Well, at first.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
He was a tenor gospel singer, right?
Yes, sir.
And,
he was really good at it.
Yeah, no, I was sort of regionally famous
Yeah.
as a tenor singer, but his demons kind of caught up with him.
Yeah, I think they were always there, I think he was really good at hiding them.
Yeah.
And that was how he made his living, if you call it that,
Yeah.
But he had a really substantial following, man, like when I was a child. Him and my grandmother were in a group together, too, for a while.
Yeah.
They traveled like to tent revivals and stuff like that.
So I didn't know your grandma was a performer.
Oh, yeah, she played piano, mandolin, guitar. Her father played fiddle and guitar.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And they did tent revivals. And
He did all that stuff. Well, not her father. He was a moonshine, blackout drunk,
those two things kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the preacher's got moonshine on his breath kind of thing.
Well, you know that joke, right? What happens when four preachers get together?
What's that?
They go get a fifth.
Do the liquor store hypocrite window is what they called it.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's the difference between Methodists and Baptists?
What's that?
The Methodists will speak to you in the liquor store.
That's pretty
Why
awesome.
do you always take two Baptists fishing?
Why?
If you only take one, he'll drink all your beer. I grew up with these jokes, man. I didn't know that I didn't know we shared the mill worker thing, though. My grandma worked at Fieldcrest for 20-something years, and they closed with 1 day's notice.
Yeah, that was about the same with my grandfather. They gave him a watch, and he was heartbroken. It was his entire life. His father-in-law, my grandma's dad worked there. She worked there. My dad worked there briefly. My uncle worked there. Mm-hmm. My mom. Everyone in that entire neighborhood worked there.
Yeah. Well, that's how it worked with mill workers in neighborhoods. Jot 'em Down Barbecue was up there on the hill, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, initially that was the Clinkico gas station.
Yeah.
And my father and grandmother worked there too for years.
Yeah. So after the mill closed?
Mm-hmm. That's where they went to. And my grandmother and grandfather, I called them Nanny and Papa, they had a janitorial business too, so they cleaned the funeral homes. This is while they worked at the mill.
Yeah.
They cleaned the funeral homes and the barber shops locally and doctor's offices, whoever needed their service.
Yeah. Man, everybody, just hillbilly families. Like my grandparents, my grandfather was he was a rural postman, and my grandmother worked in the textile mill, but they farmed, kept chickens. Everybody had a side hustle.
Sure.
Everybody worked on each other's houses.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was going to add a garage. All the brothers and cousins and uncles.
Yeah, they were all there.
Yeah.
Everybody was re-roofing everyone's house.
Right. Tool belt and everybody had tools.
Everyone was at least sort of a mechanic.
Right.
If they didn't know how, the neighbor would show them.
Right. My great uncle Otis, they all had such country names. Otis, Ike, of course Jimmy, Dwayne, Clifford.
There's Rusty there somewhere, right?
There was I had a cousin whose nickname was Rusty. He was a redheaded dude with big beard. Mm-hmm. And those were all, so Rusty, was his name Jimmy or Johnny? I can't remember what his real name was now. But those were all the pickers. Those are the guys that played hammer, dulcimer, mandolin, and guitar, and sang bluegrass like angels. They performed at my grandmother's funeral. And that's why I get so irritated with these fucking newgrass bands. That treat the culture behind bluegrass with a real active contempt.
Why? It's like beneath you.
I know, man. There's this group here. I don't want to name any names, but that one dude will black a tooth out and wears overalls unbuttoned and just make a mockery of the whole proceedings. And I saw half a show by that band and was physically restrained from hurling a bottle and ejected from the club.
Right on.
Yeah.
I could see you doing that.
It just irritated me, man. Imagine if they were doing blues and they were just talking a bunch of African American vernacular English without any
There's no substantial that's not really who you are.
It's minstrelry, and I find it disrespectful, and it's disrespectful to the part of my family that worked the hardest and struggled the most and broke their backs to build this fucking country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, I'm going to climb down off this soapbox quick because this ain't about me. But I love those people so much and respect them so much. And, man, so much was stripped away when they moved the manufacturing sector in this country offshore, and a whole segment of society just fell off the table. And it sucks.
Yeah. I know my grandparents never recovered from, their emotional connection to that place, to the mill.
Yeah.
They both worked there since the late 40s.
Yeah. Yeah. They own that house that they had up on Whitehall Hill, though, right?
They did. My grandfather built that house. There was a one bedroom, one kitchen, one bathroom house that my grandma's dad built. And then when my grandma and grandpa got together, he added the rest of it. Yeah. By himself.
Yeah. I was in that house when they still had it. But your dad, he has some substance issues.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding, just looking back on it, it was a big mystery when it happened, but I think he took out a loan against that house and never paid a dime.
Oh, well, that wasn't the only time.
Yeah.
It was a constant battle for my grandfather to keep the house. Towards the end, though, the reason the house was gone is because my grandfather couldn't read. He could read his own name. Stop signs, things with symbols, stuff like that. And somehow my father convinced him to sign the house over. He had no idea what he was signing. And then grandfather passed, and then the house was gone.
Your dad had a lot of trauma, though. He was an addict, and he had a lot of issues. And I guess he died in prison, didn't he?
Yeah, but I still have no idea how I have an idea, but I really don't know. They won't give me the records.
That's wild.
I have no idea why. I've tried several times. I just gave up. I figured it's probably better that I don't know,
Yeah.
Because it might be worse than what I thought,
Well, they're not protecting anybody but themselves if that's what's happening.
Sure.
I can't say with any certainty or any knowledge what happened, but if they won't release the records to you, then it's to avoid some kind of accountability on their part. But your dad lost a child though when he just a baby, right?
Yeah, my dad was 21. So looking back on that now that I have 3 children, I don't know how I could recover from that. And there's some new information that's come to light to me in the past couple of years that really heavy stuff regarding that. And,
you want to talk about that at all? Or?
We could talk about it.
All right.
Yeah. I've overheard my mom say things, and then she finally, on my birthday last year, I was taking her home after her hanging out with me for my birthday, and she just came clean with the whole death of my older brother. And apparently what happened is my father fell asleep with my older brother on his chest and rolled over on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how that went down. There are rumors, of other things that happened, but I don't want to get into that. But if that's the case, I don't know how you could ever forgive yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. That's a lot of us drink and use drugs to stay one step ahead of the sadness and the regret and the anxiety of accountability. And that might be something impossible to bounce back from.
Yeah, I can't even begin to, imagine, we had a friend, mutual friend that lost their child recently, and I can't even imagine at all,
Yeah, the Athens sort of music scene at large, there was a very well-loved family that had a daughter who was a preteen and got pneumonia and passed in her sleep. The mother was going to take her to the doctor the next day. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah, we got real heavy, huh?
These aren't generally light interviews. So into this somewhat chaotic world, you were born in 1984. 84.
Mm-hmm.
And spent a lot of time at your grandparents when you were little.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a big influence on your life.
They were the rock amidst the chaos, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
But they still, looking back on it, you didn't notice as much as when I was a child, how affected they were. But now as an adult, I have flashbacks to, just even looks on my grandfather's face when something happened and how much it broke him inside, but he'd never show it. You know?
Yeah. You were sort of bouncing around mom, dad, grandparents, and
My other grandmother too. I spent a lot of time with her.
yeah.
Yeah, she was another like strong force in my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandfather was really worried about you.
Well, yeah, until the day he passed away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you were telling me once that you were in the car with him and y'all saw like a homeless person or something. Do you remember this story?
If you keep going, I might remember.
And
Is
he
there
sort
anything
of
else?
grabbed you up by the collar and said, "That's where you're headed, boy. You don't get right."
Oh yeah. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always had a healthy fear and respect of him. Even when he was 77 years old, he was still the strongest person I ever met. I know that's cliche to say about your grandparents, but it's just the way it is. It's the impact they make on you.
That is the generation that clawed their way up out of the Great Depression.
Oh my gosh.
And were able to make a life at a time when, a lot of the forces in the world were sort of arrayed against them. And somehow, they managed to like plant a stake, have a garden, raise kids, have a good life.
The climbing your way from the muck, like you said, my grandfather and grandmother, their eating habits are still instilled in me. Like I stay on Owen constantly about, either finishing his plate or not throwing it away, but just from watching my grandfather eat, because he was a Depression era kid,
Sure.
I won't take it as far as he did, like sucking the marrow out of a chicken bone, but
Yeah.
I remember that vividly.
I make soup out of that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Ham bones, everything.
I'll take a bone and boil it until it's broth. Yeah.
Anytime there was anything thrown in the trash that we didn't finish, he's like, "What's wrong with you, boy?" And he'd pick up like a quarter of the sandwich and eat it.
Yeah.
You drop it on the floor. He's like, "You better eat that."
I try to be a little more understanding that my kid just sometimes isn't hungry.
Sure.
And like tamp down my own anxiety response to that. Because when you're little and your grandparents are upset, man, you're upset.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that upset them carry forward. I still to this day, if someone just stands in a door, whether it's a refrigerator door or the back door to the house and it's cold outside and they're just standing there, like I could feel this like surge of adrenaline, like, what are you doing? And it's just because that's what my grandparents, they were so worried all the time about economic precarity that it just never left them to worry about every penny. And I'm trying not to put that on my kid. I want him to be okay and happy.
I understand.
Yeah. So when I met you, you were sort of on again, off again with various drugs and drinking a lot and in and out of jail. When did that all start?
The jail?
Well,
or the drugs?
We'll start with the drugs. We'll get to jail.
Well, drugs didn't really come into my life until, like, I guess 17. I made that sound like it was like way later in my life. But it was initially just alcohol.
Yeah.
And lots of alcohol. I'd say 13 is when I started sneaking beers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that lasted, off and on until I was 32. But it was really bad. And it was really bad when you joined. I just tried to hide it. When you joined Music Hates You.
Yeah.
I don't know how successful I was at hiding it. I thought I was pretty good at it, but probably not.
See, my whole thing, a lot of people, because I've been sober for a long time now, a lot of people around me will be like, well, I can't let Patrick know that I'm doing this, that, or the other. And for me, it's like, I'm not so worried about your thing. Like, for me, I've just got to keep me sober. And I'm not judging anybody, because I'm the one with the problem, Like, I recognize that I have an obsession with drugs and alcohol, and I just need to not do it. But I remember that there was a lot of chaos, and sometimes there was some violence. Music Hates You was not a band that suffered indignity or disrespect without reacting. Mm-hmm. And we raised a lot of hell.
Yeah, you were amongst it too. Like,
no, I'm not.
You were very quick to throw a fist.
I just it's hard to explain to people who didn't grow up punk rock in the 80s how anarchic and truly different. Like, now they use punk rock to sell like chewing gum and Nissans and golf shoes, but
Yeah, it seems as when I was a teenager, it sounds corny, but it was more of a viewed as a life or death living experience.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And, but also at the same time, like, people would sometimes knock each other down, and then later on it would be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next day or a couple hours later, Noah, Ray, and I.
Yeah, you guys fought. That time we played New Year's, and y'all got into that bottle of tequila like 2 Walker Hounds in a bag of garbage.
Forrest bought a bottle of tequila, and we stole it from him and ran up to the woods and drank the whole thing. Looking back, I'm like, what a poor guy.
That was not a great series of decisions. No. It was probably not the greatest show.
Well, it's still talked about.
But it was a great spectacle.
Yeah. But you and Forrest, I remember vividly being very mad at us. And you guys leaving immediately when the show was done and leaving us to pack the entire gear. You didn't break down your drums. And I don't know if it was you or Forrest, but one of you guys said, you guys hate each other so much, we're going to leave you to pack the gear by yourselves. And I remember packing the gear and driving to the space, and not a single word was said between us, That
was definitely Forrest.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I ended up that night, but I was displeased.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh Lord.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I mean, that was just a.
We finished the set. We should point that out.
Oh yeah, we finished the show. Kind of like those bombers coming back to England from Germany on one engine and trailing smoke, and but we did manage to finish the show. There was a lot. I mean, we were just 4 very restless and angry young dudes, and Music Hates You gave us a venue to express that. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. But
my thing at that age, I wasn't able to ever walk outside of the Music Hates You spectrum. So even off stage, I was so young and I couldn't calm down ever. So it was always Music Hates You, always.
Yeah. That's my grandparents' clock.
Oh, nice.
It's actually my great grandfather's clock, and it kind of jumps into a lot of interviews now.
That's awesome, though.
Almost done. That's it. So yeah, part of being in Music Hates You is that you were kind of always in Music Hates You, whether you were wearing a guitar or
drinking a beer,
yeah,
or snorting a rail.
Yeah, It was it was kind of like joining the French Foreign Legion, being in that band.
How did you put up with it?
I loved you guys. Yeah. I still do.
It's just constant chaos.
Yeah.
You don't really. I mean, I saw it going on, but the shows were so good.
Yeah. The shows were revelatory and amazing, and that's what made it all kind of worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely.
Yeah. So when was the first time you went to jail?
13. I got into an altercation with my dad, and as you know, I grew up with him pretty much beating me and my brother.
Yeah.
And
your younger brother.
Huh?
Your younger brother.
Mm-hmm. Not my baby brother. He fortunately never received any of that.
Yeah.
But he's 12 years younger than me. I guess by that time my dad was older too, and had realized some of his mistakes.
Yeah.
But I remember always saying, and my grandfather saying too, that one day he's going to be just as big or probably bigger than you, and you're not going to get away with that shit. And that's ultimately what happened. And the bully called the cops on me.
Yeah.
I clocked him once, and he called the cops, and I went to jail. Well, youth detention center for probably a week.
Yeah.
That was the first time.
Yeah. How was that?
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
I was scared to death. I do remember the sheriff that took me to YDC was very comforting. He was like, I know your dad. I know he deserved it. You'll get out soon, kind of thing. And it made me feel better.
That's got to be fairly intense.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop me from, continuing to downward spiral at all,
How many times did you go to YDC?
Once.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I kept getting in trouble and kept avoiding arrest pretty consistently until I was 17. And I went to jail again at 17 for fighting my dad. Probably 3 or 4 more times for fighting my dad.
Yeah. You were living at your grandparents then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he went to prison from when I was 15 to 17. He got out, and it immediately started again, you know.
What did he go to prison for?
Embezzlement and identity fraud and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He figured out a method to wire himself money through Western Union, and I don't know, like $100,000.
Wow.
And yeah, I remember things being off, you know, when I was a kid. Like, we never had money. Then one day, you know, we had entire new furnishings and 3 new cars. He gave my grandmother a tree made out of $100 bills, you know. But of course, 6 months later, everything would be repossessed, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he would just blow through the money and just be poor man rich for a while, and then, you know, ultimately always get arrested, you know.
Was he doing pain meds?
He was doing pain meds then. He hurt his back severely at a brief warehouse job he had. Some heavy machinery and boxes fell on him, and really messed his spine up really bad. And he had several rods inserted into his back and stuff. He was always in pain.
Yeah.
And he was extremely overweight, so that didn't help either, you know. But you know, throughout that time, he was a tyrant. Like, just recently, I started to feel like I've gotten over a lot of it, you know.
Yeah.
For example, I was working on my grandparents' grave about a year ago, like cleaning it up and stuff like that. And he's buried, you know, maybe 20 feet away. And not once did I even think about it, you know, and I consider that a success, you know, until I got home. Like, wow, I didn't even think about it at all. Or him, nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you done any work on any of that?
Like therapy and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Did you ever go to Al-Anon or anything?
No. But I have a therapist that I go to every 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
You know, when stuff starts flaring up.
Yeah.
But stopping drinking has helped all that immensely, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
like, it's been 4 years since you had a drink.
4 years today.
Mm-hmm. What made you, what got you to the point where, like, all right, that's it?
February 2016, I got drunk with my wife and a friend, and some psychosis happened out of the middle of nowhere. I was convinced that my friend, he was a dear friend of mine, was hitting on my wife. He was not. And I bashed a beer bottle against the wall and made a complete fool out of myself. And I was I woke up, let me point out that I woke up in the middle of the night and was peeing all over my entertainment system. And I took a knife and carved up my bed and all kinds of just insane stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I woke up and I was devastated, you know, like at my age, that I put my friend and my wife through that.
How much did you drink that night? Do you remember?
Probably not a lot. And that's another point I'll get to, is that I became such an alcoholic that it didn't seem like it was taking me much to get drunk at all.
Yeah.
And I could feel it like 2 beers in, like the idiot switch turned on, you know?
Yeah.
You know, slurring my words and, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
2 drinks in on top of drinking you had done previously. Were you like a daily drinker at that point?
Yeah. So it's never very sober for, you know.
Yeah. It's like pushing a car.
Yeah.
Once it's already rolling, it's real easy to keep it moving. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I convinced myself I was done drinking that day, but it was like a week before my birthday, and I'm like, all right, I'll drink one more time, you know. I'll drink for my birthday, and it was a success. Nothing bad happened, and I'm like, all right, cool. And the friend that situation happened with, he invited me out to drink about a week later, and I got interesting enough, I didn't really get that drunk. You know, I had a couple beers, and I found myself in a really brutal physical altercation, and I thought I was going to die. The dude ended up beating me with a trailer ball hitch, you know?
Ooh.
You know, like cracked my ribs, like cracked a piece of my arm. And
what was that all about?
I was standing outside of the bar with my friend, and this dude walked up to me, and he's like, where are you from? It was random. I'm like, Flowery Branch. He's like, losers are from Flowery Branch. I'm like, yeah, maybe so. I'm there. And I was like, can you do me a favor and just back up some? And he wouldn't. So I ended up pushing him, and he fell down. He got wrapped up in a plastic table in a chair. Like his arm was through one side of the chair, his leg was through the other. There's probably 30 people out there, and they all started laughing at him, and I felt really bad about that. And my friend and I and his girlfriend decided to leave. And as we're walking out it was a normal bar. As we're walking out the exit, I saw something on my peripheral in a bush, and it was something shiny, and it was him. He'd been waiting on me and tried to clock me with the trailer ball hitch. And almost got me. We tussled around. He was hitting me with it, and finally I was able to lay him out. He got arrested. I wasn't trying to press charges, but they arrested him anyway. I went home, and the next day I was beat up and just embarrassed. And even though I didn't get drunk, you know, I thought I was being an adult. It still found me, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is enough. I'm done. I have kids at home, and
right.
You know.
Yeah. This, I guess, to contextualize this was after years of the kind of, you know, idiocy that we would get into as Southern dudes who have honor to defend, and somebody says some shit and you can't just let it go, you know, and you end up fighting some dude, and it happens over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you have to be like, why do I keep finding myself in these situations?
Yeah, why do I have lack of control as a man? Like, why can't I just think fuck this guy and literally just walk away, you know? Like, and do him a favor.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But the flip side of that coin is that some people would think that doing him the favor is slapping the shit out of him too. But you never know what you'll get into, and you know.
Right. I mean, dude could have a gun.
Exactly.
Or a fucking trailer ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
How many times did you go to jail?
Man. Frequently enough that every time that we drove by the jail together, you said, "There's Zach's house." Well over 20 times.
Yeah. Did it ever stop being scary?
Oh yeah.
That's
scary.
That's a bad place to be at. When jail doesn't frighten you anymore.
I knew all the guards. They were high-fiving me walking in, stuff like that. You know, and when you go back to jail, all the guys are still there. It's like a reunion, you know. They're happy to see you. Of course they are, you know.
Yeah.
And everyone's hugging and playing cards, and I fall right back into the routine, you know.
Yeah.
And there I knew how to function more, you know.
Yeah.
There were set rules, you know.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Towards the end, I didn't get scared at all, you know.
Yeah.
I'd honestly be a little relieved that I wasn't going to be, you know, drunk for a few days, you know, until I started doing long stretches, and then you figure out how to get drunk, you know.
Yeah. So, but at some point you became a dad, and that spun things around a little bit.
It did. I mean, I still drank for another year and a half.
Yeah.
But you know, it sounds cliche, but it's true. You know, it really opens your eyes to see it.
Yeah.
No
shit.
Birth, you know. And
well, maybe I'm the weirdo, but I can't imagine keeping on like I was doing as a dad. There was a long gap between me getting sober and becoming a parent, but like it changed everything to become a dad for me. Like my feelings about my health and about longevity and about just so many things.
Well, you seem less, you know, angry than you did, you know, and not that you ever, like in my experience, had a serious problem with anger, but you did have a problem with anger, you know. It was obvious, you know.
Yeah.
Not that you would like freak out or anything like that, but you know.
Not on the outside.
Yeah. Well, I can tell. I knew you well enough to tell when you were.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I was wound pretty tight for a long time. A lot of that had to do with not treating my codependency and alcoholic parent issues, and just like trying to like just muscle through that.
Sure.
That didn't really work out. So getting all that kind of doing some work on that helped a lot. So you were in jail when Johnny Cash died.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you talking about how you unexpectedly found yourself really deeply affected by that.
Oh, yeah, big time. I actually drew a massive black guitar on my cell wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super affected by it, you know. I thought that, you know, well, I'm sitting here and I know that, again, it sounds cliche, or corny, and I don't give a damn that it does, but I'm like, well, this is not the end. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't have to be this guy, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I could, even though Johnny didn't do any time in prison, just that image was enough to, you know, help me out. Or the story behind Merle Haggard, you know, like how Johnny Cash affected Merle Haggard in prison. And he's like, wait, I don't have to be this guy. You know, I can do something, you know, and that was a profound effect on me. You know.
There was the sense always the music hates you, and I don't mean to keep coming back to it, but
well, that's a huge part of our existence,
right?
Mine and yours.
And there was the sense like, man, Zach just can't get his shit together. Like we'd have to cancel a show because you were in jail or whatever. And then, like, your grandpa died when I came to the funeral, and I realized that in that context, in many ways, you were the person who was the most like together emotionally. Because I feel like some of it was that I had dealt with you in a different context and had not realized how dysfunctional your family of origin was. But also that when your grandfather died, like something changed in you and you really stepped up. Like I think that there was a part of you that was like, oh shit, I thought that guy was going to live forever. Mm-hmm. And that you would have all these chances to kind of turn things around, and then he was suddenly gone. And like the Zack that was at that funeral was a different guy. I didn't mean to rip the bandage off like that.
That's all right. Yeah, that was another wake-up call. I spent most of the day before he died with him, and one of my brother's friends were at my grandfather's house hanging out, and my grandfather had to take him home, and he asked me to ride with him, and I was like, sure, but I have to go to work, soon. Can you just drop me off at work? I was working at 5 Star Day then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. And then on the way out the door, he asked my grandmother to call Mike, which is my first cousin. He's like, I'd like to talk to Mike on the phone, which my grandfather didn't talk on the phone. That's not his deal. And she's like, why? He's like, I just want to speak to him one more time. And we're like, what? For like the last year of my grandfather's life, he's like, I'm just ready,
Yeah. How old was he?
76.
Yeah.
Which is a lot longer than he probably should have been around, considering the stress level and, how hard he worked. And, he's a big person too. He was like 6'4" and just a big guy. But as he was letting me out of the car in front of 5 Star, he looked at me and said, I'm sorry, and went home and went to bed and died. And I feel like I never got the chance. To prove that I could be a man.
Yeah.
So to your point about the funeral, that was what I was trying to do, is to at least that day make up somewhat for the fact that he never got to see it.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about that in a long time.
Yeah. When Lisa and I got home after the funeral that night, she said, she was the one who pointed it out. She said, it felt like Zack was the person there who was the most in touch with what was happening. Like, you weren't, like, families get together and everybody's kind of carrying a resentment from some shit that happened at Thanksgiving or whatever, or like years and years ago, someone misperceived something or thought that, everyone's walking around with this like bucket full of resentments, but you were the like most emotionally present person there that day. And it seemed like Lisa said, it seems like Zack is the one who is most touched by his grandfather's passing.
Yeah. A lot of it, I guess it's like you said, it's normal too. A lot of it just breezing over stuff and talking about, normal life stuff, like, did you catch the Braves game last night and stuff like that? And I understand that's probably people's way of coping through whatever they have to cope through. But, I do remember thinking like this sucks that, a lot of you guys didn't pay attention to him while he was alive. And it seems like you're still not, and I hope that certain people don't hear this and think that I'm trying to judge someone individually, because it wasn't like that across the board,
Yeah.
But there was a lot of that, There's a lot of stuff, that happens in, in close one in family deaths that still bother me, where people seem to a lot of people want to make the situation about them. And for some reason that bothers me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but I guess it's human nature. You're having to go through it. It is affecting you. So.
Yeah, of course. I think that's just the way different people cope with death in different ways. And, for some people, it really is about them. It's about this. They feel this tremendous loss, and they don't. know how else to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a whole lot longer after that. Your grandma was forced to leave the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then your dad went back to prison.
Yeah, my dad, they lived together for another year and a half. He went back to prison, yeah.
It's not really that long a time.
No, but I know it seemed like an eternity for my grandmother, because her husband was gone, and now she had no one to help balance the stuff out with my dad, because they never stopped like taking care of him. And I know that my grandfather never, he always resented the fact, because, my grandfather at 8 years old was the breadwinner in his house, and he was always like, what is your problem?
Right.
But he also felt like a failure because he did personally, because his son never got his shit together. But
yeah,
my dad went to prison, about a year and a half after my grandfather died.
Yeah.
For identity theft. He stole my younger brother's identity and ran up thousands of dollars worth of debt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That normally wouldn't be something you go to prison for unless you got a whole shitload of priors.
Yeah, a lot of priors,
Yeah.
And I always wondered how he didn't go to prison for longer than he did, and I can only think that maybe he was telling on people,
Yeah.
because he had stacks of felonies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left Music Hates You. It just got to a point where we were always sort of, the work that we were doing as artists was really about expunging anger from the body. It was a really physical band. It was a really visceral band. And, at some point we were just going to exhaust ourselves with it. And I left, and I guess it was probably a year and a half later that you left the band too.
You left in what, like 2008?
I don't remember exactly when.
Yeah, I'd say a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
No, let's see. I quit Music Hates You in 2009, and I didn't. Yeah, I moved to Portland, Oregon. I immediately started playing music again.
Did
but
you?
But not like to the level of Music Hates You.
Yeah.
I was just kind of having fun.
Yeah. You had that thing like a more roots country acoustic thing for a minute.
That didn't take off because I was just too drunk.
Yeah.
The pictures look awesome. The audio doesn't sound good.
What was that band called?
Tarnation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but before that, I was in Stone Mountain Freeway with Dave Slocum, and that had really fast success, and it was going places. But there's another thing that was just a bunch of dudes, including myself, just cared more about getting fucked up than they did the music at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Even though we had a lot of attention from higher ups, Phil and Selma was championing us big time. It still wasn't enough for us to keep it afloat.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave was a family man at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He had been a family man for quite a bit.
Yeah.
Dave's doing great.
Is he?
Yeah, he owns his own auto shop in Tucker.
That's not surprising.
Yeah.
He was
not at all, right?
Yeah. No, he and I, when I had that Dodge, that 74 Dodge, he and I talked a lot about Mopar stuff online.
That's we used to joke like that. Engines were like his form of porn.
Yeah.
He'd write lyrics about it, man.
I remember. Yeah. And there was always I think every one of those Stone Mountain Freeway videos had at least one pre-1972 Mopar doing a burnout in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was an Artemis Pile Driver video right before I joined called Dirt Devil, and he's driving some souped up Nova, singing "I hate fuel injection."
Right.
Who's going to relate to this besides rednecks? He's like, rednecks are good. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. I gave up on carbureted engines after that Dodge. I'm done with them.
It was all Greek to me, man, but the crowd liked it, and he seemed to be into it. Whatever he wanted to sing about that would keep him swinging from rafters and jumping off amps was cool with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a hell of a front man.
So then you moved to Portland for a while.
Well, I moved to Portland prior to that, and Slocum actually called me or texted me when I was in Portland, and he was like, too bad you don't play bass. And I'm like, who says I don't play bass? I'll play anything. And he asked me to join the band, and I moved back to Atlanta. I was in that band for, I think, 2 years.
Yeah?
Yeah.
At some point you meet Carrie, and...
That's a hell of a story. Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah. I was in a band called Grim Pickens at the time. I think it was 2012. which is more of like I'd call it a country punk kind of band. I really don't know how to describe it, but I enjoyed it. Yet another band that couldn't keep its shit together that was good. Largely because of me, you know. If I'm the leader at that time, the band's in trouble, you know. But
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's not this. There's a million great bands that never rose above the Basement Show and Just Friends level because it isn't about greatness. It's about like getting out there and doing the work. And, you know, I'm not making a value judgment. Like for me, I've seen some absolutely amazing bands through the years. And I thought, man, that was great. And then 5 years later, I was like, I thought more was going to happen with those guys. But, I mean, they seemed like they were having a great time. So
sure,
not everybody's going to go sleep on floors and live on ramen noodles.
Well, including me now. I'm not.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Right.
I paid my dues in that area. You know, the old saying is you never stop paying your dues. Well, I've stopped sleeping on floors then.
Yeah.
But Carrie, right? Well, Carrie was married to our guitar player at the time, and him and I finally sort of made peace, so I don't mind bringing out the dirty laundry with this. But long story short, we started a relationship while they were married, and, you know, it was kind of like the Johnny-Joey thing, you know?
Yeah.
You know, Johnny fell in love with Joey's woman, vice versa. It wasn't like just a fling, you know?
Right.
It wasn't like, hey, we're just going to hook up and have fun, and we fell in love.
Right.
And it was a big, nasty scene for several years, but our love was strong enough where, you know, we fought through it, you know? And she is the main reason that I think I'm alive, you know?
Yeah.
You know? I know she probably hates me right now, but I still love her, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that was the big turning point in your life. Like, since then, you've started a family, gotten off drugs and alcohol, had a couple of bands that, one of which flirted with big-time success in the metal world and is still going. But
they're big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you left that band, and now you're with another band.
I left that band even though we were very close to doing what they're doing now, you know? Like,
right.
We were talking to the same label and the same A&R guy when I was in the band.
You got to respect, though, like, if you're not feeling it, you got to let it go.
Yeah, and I wasn't feeling it, and it wasn't fair to anyone involved, you know? I'm sure I could have stuck around and we still would have gotten signed.
Yeah.
You know? But I know they probably held a little resentment towards me leaving, even though it was very, you know, nice. There wasn't any drama, you know. But they probably thought in the back of their head somewhere that I might have screwed up their chance. And I'm like, no, the groundwork is there. You know, all you got to do is take the leap now, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the work has almost been done. You know?
Yeah.
But I just wasn't feeling it, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you started Hembree and the Satan Sisters with our friend Ash.
Yeah. About 2 weeks after
leaving Toro.
Yeah. Well, I wrote all the songs for the album like 2 weeks after that. And then recruited Ash, who has been like, man, I can't say enough good things about that guy.
Yeah.
Known him for 20 years. And we often joke around like, man, we should have been doing this a long time ago. Then I'm like, we would just fucking killed each other though.
Yeah.
Because we were both like alpha male drunk drug addicts, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Now both family men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's amazing, man. Well, you played with us.
Yes.
Right? You played one show with us. Yeah,
I did.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And we've had good success with that, man. Success that I'm comfortable with, you know?
Yeah.
We signed to the label that I wanted to sign to. You know? I'm happy with the success of the album, you know?
What label is that?
Rusty Knuckles out of Raleigh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are predominantly punk and country, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's Annie Scene is probably one of their most famous bands. But there's also Hellbound Glory, which was a really popular country band until the singer went solo.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stuff on there that you would really dig.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, a lot.
There's been a lot of great Carolina labels that aren't as big as Merge, but are just as vital.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's been some great stuff.
I mean, they take it serious, man. It's quality stuff, you know.
Yeah. So you've kind of done what a lot of, I think, guys or people from profoundly dysfunctional families of origin, you found someone that you could kind of build a life with, and you guys have this beautiful family. And you seem to really aggressively protect your bubble, your like serenity, stability bubble. and I really respect that.
Yeah, I do. I take it extremely serious.
Yeah.
To the point where I've had friends accuse me of, being stuck up, in the past couple of years. I don't invite people over to my house.
Well, I mean, so the world of heavy music, of metal, of punk, hardcore, like a lot of it is about having kind of a different emotional roadmap than regular people. If we were regular people, we'd have regular lives, and you just kind of gotta have a bubble, stability bubble.
Yeah,
it's something you got to protect every day.
I agree.
So, you say you go to therapy every now and then.
Every now and then.
Yeah. I remember when you first stopped drinking, you really threw yourself into not weightlifting because you didn't do weights, but you were doing a lot of isometric exercise and a lot of endurance exercise, and that was, I think,
I've slipped on that now. If you can take a look at me, but yeah.
I think that a lot of times people are like, I'm going to do something good for myself. What they don't realize is what they're doing is they're channeling a lot of the restless energy that's released by not indulging in past coping behaviors.
Yeah. Well, it ends up being not just as much of a problem, but it becomes a problem too. It was affecting my relationship because I'm a very, very indulgent, kind of person. I go all the way. I'm a major addictive personality. So, if I smoke, I'm going to smoke 3 packs a day. If I'm going to work out, I'm going to work out 4 or 5 hours a day. Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I eat, if I go to a buffet, I'm gonna have 7 plates of food.
Well, like a lot of the obsessive behavior I've indulged in through the years is about avoiding my feelings. Feelings are hard. We drink whiskey because feelings are hard.
But isn't it odd though, when you drink whiskey or do drugs to that level, that you're overboard with your feelings at a certain point. If you've done it long enough, you're running from emotion, but then you become illogically emotional.
Well, I think that's part of the disease, right? Yeah. That you're by not dealing with your emotions on their terms, you give them strength and power, because then not only is there regret, fear, sadness, anger, you've also got the snowball effect of shame, and
sure.
And it curdles. It gets rancid the longer you ignore it. It gets worse, and then the whiskey or cocaine or whatever your particular thing that you do is, now it comes with an extra payload of here come those goddamn feelings.
Mm-hmm. For the first 2 years of being, I don't want to say sobriety because I've done other things since I here and there, not often, since I stopped drinking. Drinking was always the problem, that led to chaos.
Yeah.
Like John Macbeth says, it makes me break out in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
He said track marks and handcuffs.
Track marks and handcuffs. And
I said, that's funny. I break out in broken noses and dumpsters.
Yeah, I do all of it. Man,
yeah.
That's good too. I'm so proud of him, man. I love him.
He's such a good guy.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing.
Yeah.
The first 2 years of being away from alcohol, I didn't crave it at all. The moment I decided to quit, it's weird. I had some physical detox stuff.
Yeah.
But mentally, I was I am done. I know I don't have any cravings for it, no desire, to the point now where I can't even smell it. I'm ugh.
Yeah.
But I was overly emotional too, which is normal, I think, for the first 2 years of being away from alcohol. I was in a dark spot,
Well, all those feelings you haven't been dealing with don't go away.
Yeah. Well, they come out full force,
Yeah.
I don't want to say I was ever suicidal or anything like that because I wasn't, but I could see where someone would go with that,
Yeah. Well, feelings are hard. They can be really hard.
Yeah.
And someone who's had the kind of experiences that you or John has had, in that family of origin where, the people who were entrusted to protect you did not protect you, those feelings can get really intense.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really hard.
Well, it was always hard for me to think that it was to own up to the fact that it wasn't just me that was the problem, that, I dissected it. I'm because I don't want to point a finger,
Yeah.
at another human being, but you know what? It was other people's faults too. Your childhood molds who you are.
Yes, totally.
But for years, I didn't want to point the blame at even my father. I wanted to be I'm an adult. I'm the one who's doing this now, and that's true because I'm aware of it.
A big part of our identity as Southern men is self-reliance.
Mm-hmm.
There's volumes and volumes of country songs, like about being able to take care of your own. But I think part of that macho identity does a disservice to like our real need to like grapple with some of the bad shit that happened to us. You know?
Sure. Well, there's also scores of country songs that deal with that too.
Yeah, it's true.
About your inability to take care of your family because you can't get yourself in check.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All the liquor songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Totally right.
So
I've tried to balance. My wife still gives me a little guff for this because I was very emotional, and now I guess that I've become so less emotional that maybe I've gone too far with that. You know, I mean, you just got some out of me a minute ago, which is rare.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It takes a big jump for me to become as emotional or near as emotional as I used to be. You know, which sometimes I wonder if I've gone too far with that too. You know, where I've just maybe pushed some of it too far away. You know.
Yeah, I think that for me, like finding that balance is about having an ongoing like relationship with my shit, you know, what they call an ongoing program of recovery, to like stay in it and deal with it as it happens. And also
day by day.
Yeah, and every now and then, you know, I'll just be having a regular day and I'll remember some shit that happened. And I'm like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And so I still do therapy and still go to meetings, and it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but man, thank God I found something that helps me, you know. But so Hembree and the Satan Sisters has a record coming out on Rusty Knuckle.
Oh, it's already out.
Yeah.
It's been out since September 20th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And it was mixed by our friend Warren Riker.
Yeah. It sounds great. Of course it does, right?
Yeah, Warren's a genius. So Warren has how many Grammys?
5.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first time I went to his house, we were in when he lived here in Athens. I went to his basement with him, and they're just in the corner, knocked over, you know, in a pile of dust. He's like, I don't give a damn about those things. I mean, he was exaggerating. I know he cares about those things,
but I think that the physical manifestation of the award is different than just knowing that you did the work.
Sure.
Achieve the success. And
it's got to be a heavy feeling being on stage at such a young age, accepting, you know, a Grammy for the score, you know, the Fugees album.
Yeah.
You know, if you see the pictures of him, he's like a baby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he was just a kid from the city.
He's still just a kid.
Yeah.
He's 50 years old, I think, now. He's still just as silly as I remember. You know, I talk to him probably once a week.
Yeah.
You know, he's a great dude.
I really like that guy.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, like, I'm going to end up working with this dude more on some projects, and then he was just gone.
He's always gone.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to him, he's a different part of the country or the different part of the world, you know.
Yeah.
Right now he's in Nashville, I think. But next week I'm going to go to Belize for a year.
Yeah.
You know, he's that kind of guy. You know?
Yeah.
You know? I think he's always searching for not searching for what's making him happy. He's just searching, just having fun in life, you know.
Yeah.
You know? I think he's more or less sober too.
Oh yeah?
I think so. You know, probably at least in comparison to where we were.
Yes.
Him and I were terror twins.
Oh, you guys were the twins of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was bad. We were like a tire fire, you know. You ever heard that saying? You know, it smells like shit. You can see it from a mile away.
I always said that I once used that phrase to describe Music Hate You. I said we're like a tire fire. We're always going to be burning, and it's always going to smell a little bad.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Hey, Crash and Ride would like to let you know about a new industry-wide initiative focused on mental health called Backline. Backline is a hub for artists, industry professionals, and their families to quickly and easily access mental health and wellness resources. Backline has partnered with leading support organizations and care providers to streamline access to services specifically geared towards the music industry. Go to www.backline.care to get the support that you need to thrive both on and off the road. The way that Backline works is you contact them via their website or their 800 number, and they will connect you with a caseworker. That caseworker will be familiar with resources in your area to get you the mental health care that you need. If you need to talk to a therapist, they can put you in touch with a therapist. If you need to talk to a psychiatrist and be evaluated for meds, they have a list of psychiatrists. They have resources for inpatient therapy. They can put you in touch with sober companions. If you need someone to travel with you while you're on the road to help you stay out of trouble, Backline is a really end-to-end comprehensive solution for people who are struggling in the music industry. Now, a little closer to home, if you're in the Athens, Georgia area and you're a musician struggling with anxiety and depression, you can contact Nucci Space at 706-227-1515 or go to nuci.org. That's nucci.org. Nucci Space is a nonprofit musicians resource focused on suicide prevention. Here's how Nucci's works. If you contact them and you say, hey, look, I'm in crisis, whether you're a musician or not, they'll connect you with resources in the Athens, Georgia area. If you're a musician, that health care will be subsidized. In my own case, I was able to see a counselor for $15 or $20 a session. If you're not a musician, they'll do their best to connect you with low-cost or sliding scale options for mental health care in Athens. Nucci Space provides a lot of resources for musicians in the Athens area. They have low-cost practice spaces. They have a gear sale where they're constantly selling secondhand gear. They've got a low-cost recording studio. They're really just an amazing asset to the Athens, Georgia music scene, but their primary mission is helping people who are depressed or anxious get better. Go to nuci.org, that's nucci.org, or call 706-227-1515. And finally, no matter where you are, if you're struggling with anxiety and depression and you're contemplating self-harm, you can always call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK. It's 24/7. It's free. It's confidential. They have trained volunteers to help get you through your crisis and get you the help that you need. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org.
Every time I think of Music Hates You, which is it's probably a disservice to the music or anyone in the band, the first memory that jumps out is a head on the door, Noah and I fighting those two Marines.
We fought a whole bar that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got those dudes.
Yeah.
Noah and I did. I remember he like spit in my face or something like
He
that.
stepped on your pedal. You guys are, because head on the door in Montgomery, there's no stage. You play on the floor in the corner. And people coming in the door.
Yeah, we'd have a line of people around the corner there.
Because they were on one in, one out the whole time we were playing. And then that guy just walked in and just walked right into your shit, like walked across your pedals like he was crossing the street. Mm-hmm. And you put your hand on your... I was watching this happen from behind the drum set, and I thought, this is going to end badly. And you put your hand on the dude's chest and pushed him back and pointed at the pedals, and he just gave you the double bird, like, fuck you!
Which shouldn't make me mad, because that's what we do constantly, right? But...
yeah, I don't know if Pope Francis could have had that happen and not lost his temper.
Yeah.
And then that dude's head moved rapidly backwards about 18 inches to the point where the spit that was in his mouth was just still hanging in space. And then the whole thing just erupted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember feeling something off my shoulder, and Noah had been, unbeknownst to me, had been crouched down on top of off my amp, which I don't know how he never shattered those things doing that.
I know.
But what he did is he jumped off the amp and propelled off my shoulder and kicked the other dude in the face.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is some serious redneck Bruce Lee stuff. How did you do that?
Remember we talked about starting a redneck martial art?
Yeah, gonna get you.
Gonna get you.
Yeah. I still think about that a lot too. Yeah. Gonna get you. You should start a YouTube channel of that, man.
Oh,
God.
yeah. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
The Gonna Get You Dojo. It's got a screen door that slams, you know?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Those guys called later that night and apologized after they got kicked out.
No shit.
Yeah. They called, I think his name's Todd, the bartender.
Yeah.
You know, and Todd's like, you got a phone call. He's like, man, I just want to say you're sorry, man. I love your band. I'm like, hey, man, that's cool.
So we left there that night and we drove to my parents' house in Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was in a bad way.
oh, yeah. My mom was like, she would ask years later, before she died, she would say, "Whatever happened to that boy that went and hid in the bar?" Because we would walk into Head on the Door, and they would start handing out tumblers full of brown liquor. So at one point, to get away from that, you went to another bar.
I think my plan was that no one in there is going to offer me free drinks. I didn't think, well, I'm just going to buy my own.
Right. My mom still was laughing about that in hospice care. That boy that was trying to hide from the liquor in the bar.
She's a sweet lady.
Yeah. She's been gone 6 years almost.
Wow.
It'll be 6 years this summer. Man. Well, I'm really excited about the new record. I've heard it sounds great. I've seen a couple of videos. Things seem to be going really well.
Yeah, it's fun. It's at a level that I like, and a level that at this point in my life with a family and played music, seriously for the most part for 20 years. I don't want to go on long tours.
Yeah.
And at this point it's almost not necessary in the fact that, you're really wasting a lot doing that, in my opinion. Like anything more than 2 weeks at this point, unless you have a package deal or someone's really taking care of it. I don't know if it's.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm like Pinky Doodle Poodle just got their new visa approved, and
you love what you're doing.
I love playing music.
I do too, but it's also hard for me to balance. Everyone in my band has three of us have serious family lives too.
Yeah.
But not to say that I won't do it. I will if we can make it right for everyone involved. In order for me to step away from 3 kids and my wife, she has to know that what I'm doing
matters.
Yeah. So if I call her and she's like, "Where are you?" "Oh, we got 3 days off in bumfuck Arkansas." She's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right. Yeah.
But I love the band, man, a lot. And it's the only band, in my opinion, that I've been in since Music Hates You that can compare to the rowdiness of it or the intensity of it.
Yeah. No, it's true.
But it's focused. Not that Music Hates You wasn't focused, but I feel like I'm at an age now where I also know how to turn it off.
Well, the thing about Music Hates You is that none of us knew what to take seriously and what to let go of.
Yeah, and we had egos, man.
Yeah.
Not that I don't know.
Yeah.
But egos did, I guess. Well, you had a bigger grasp on stuff than I think we did. It was easy for it to hurt our feelings.
Yeah.
These tough dudes that were so fragile.
Oh, I'll never forget riding back from that studio in North Atlanta that time before I became a studio engineer. And we'd had a tough day. We were trying to get a couple of fairly difficult songs down.
Oh, with Matt Washburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had my iPod plugged into whatever its way of listening to music we had in the van at that point. And that Dolly Parton song, Coat of Many Colors,
don't
came
start
on.
with that, dude. I'm going to freaking break out just thinking about it.
Man, it just wrecked everybody in the
Oh, my God.
I mean, that's the thing that people don't understand is I think that you don't just fall out of a tree one day a punk kid or metal kid or death rock kid or whatever. Like the people who I've been close to in that scene, at least in the years when I was deeply in it, had very intense emotional lives. Like noise rock dudes feel their feelings, and that was the big change when I started doing more indie rock stuff. People would ask questions like, "Is this too much?" I'm like, "Is it too much?" Like, the world I come from, there's no such thing as too much, Metal dudes feel dread. They feel anger. They feel they get super stoked about stuff to the point where like their emotions run away from them. And that's the difference, I think, between like noise rock, metal, punk, the really intense music, and some of the more like indie pop stuff. It's more like a career thing, or it's like an aesthetic thing, not a passion thing. And Music Hates You had a surplus of all of those things: fear, dread, anger, misery, excitement.
And there was fun too.
Yeah, and a deep and abiding love for each other. And,
that was I tell people often about this too, because the band still comes up when I'm out on the road. People, young people. I'm talking to 20, 21-year-olds that, weren't even, they were probably 2 years old when we started that band. It trips me out. They have a homemade Music Hate You shirt on. They're like telling me what Send More Paramedics means to them and stuff. But I try to explain to them that band was a tight brotherhood. It wasn't, we were beyond friends. And that is part of the reason I think we took everything so personal between us,
Yeah. Well, there were shows with that band that were some of the greatest rock shows I've ever played in my life.
Oh, me too. Remember No Justice, No Peace?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that Selma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still tell that story. So I think that story is worth airing.
Yeah.
I realize that we're sort of running long, but Music Hates You built a following in Montgomery at that club, had on the door. And then there were some dudes from Selma that were like, you should come to Selma. Selma is 45 minutes, an hour away from Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Music Hates You had at least two members who were, like, deeply immersed in the history of the civil rights movement. Noah Ray was the guy who first handed me a copy of Malcolm X's autobiography.
Yeah, he worships Malcolm X.
Well, Malcolm X is a transformational figure in American race politics. Like, was one of the first really central figures who was more of a Northeastern product of the industrial, up to the point of 1963 or 4, the political movement of African Americans was mostly rural, Christian, and definitely infused with the Gospels, the New Testament. Malcolm X was the first civil rights leader of national prominence who said, if you push me, I will push you back. And at that point, lynchings and everything around that, the violence we're about to talk about in Selma, there were plenty of American blacks, especially urban people, who were like, enough's enough. I'm not turning the other cheek anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think Noah really grasped onto that message with a real passion.
Yeah, it could be very scary.
So we're rolling into Selma, Alabama, and I've got some misgivings about it because I worked for John Lewis for a brief period of time when I was young, and I know what happened in Selma, and I know what happened on that bridge, and we came over that hill.
Yeah, we were talking about it as we passed it. Yeah.
And that fucking bridge hasn't changed. I can't even tell if they painted it or not. It looks exactly the same. It's a hump of metal. It's the weirdest looking bridge you've ever seen, and it's a perfect place for the Alabama State Patrol to lay an ambush for a bunch of people marching for the right to vote, and they sure as hell did. So I had my misgivings rolling into Selma, as we all did. Mm-hmm. And then we got to the...
Well, sorry, I had no idea we were playing. None of us had any idea we were playing like a Moose Lodge, right?
It was a VFW Hall, which is what's ironic, because there was that young woman, a black woman.
Simone.
I didn't know her name, Simone. Yeah. Big fan of the band. Also NCO in the Air Force. And to get into the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall all around the country, you just have to show your military ID. And so she went to go in, first black person to come down the line to come in, and that dude at the door said, "This is a members-only club, ma'am."
I thought he took it farther than that. But
he did.
Okay.
She said, "I'm a member," and she pulled out her military ID, and he said, "I'm sorry, you're going to need to be sponsored by a member here," or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And then somehow she got in the door. I don't remember what.
It was me.
Yeah?
I said, she's a friend of the band, you're going to let her in.
Yeah. That's another part of the puzzle I didn't know. Yeah. But we were steaming. We were angry about it.
Well, we were mad when we got there. I know that when we walked in, and this might sound a little snobby, but we're playing with a bunch of Radiohead cover bands tonight or something like that. We're what's going on?
Yeah, no, it was definitely like the hometown. But I wasn't bothered by that at all, because that's growing up in Columbus, Georgia, the punk bands at the VFW Hall were just part of life.
Well, I don't mean anything necessarily negative about that. I remember, I guess we were expecting a different kind of
But
vibe or crowd.
Having grown up with shows like that, I knew it was ripe for mayhem.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, so we were just steaming. Somebody had a bottle or something.
Well, I always had a bottle.
Yeah. And we were just waiting our turn to play. How long did we play? 11 minutes?
That sounds like a lot longer than it went to me.
Yeah, we got all our stuff set up, and like we were at that point, we were rolling with amplifiers the size of refrigerators, 3 or 4 of them, and I had my full drum set.
Man, it looked cool.
Yeah, it was loud as fuck though. All those other bands were like playing on little PB Bandit 65 amps and the TKO 150
Line 6 pods and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so we hit the downbeat of the first note, and it was like the lights flickered. It was so fucking loud, and we just erupted. I think within 4 minutes, Noah's pants were off.
Yeah, well, this is where it gets GG territory, like GG Allen land.
Oh yeah, GG, yeah.
And I get compared to that guy quite often, and I know his brother, and I don't like to be compared because there's only one GG Allen, right?
Right.
And that's you don't want to live up to that. So I'm careful to say GG, but Noah had a microphone up his ass, so
yes, Yeah, we definitely
and barrettes and pigtails in his hair.
Yeah. We definitely we rocked the VFW that night and really showed out. And I guess they killed power on us.
Well, he walked behind me, one of the guys.
Yeah.
And unplugged my amp. And I went to clock him, and somehow I caught how old he was before
You would have killed that dude.
He was an old man.
Yeah.
And I stopped myself. I remember him saying, "That's it. Y'all are done. That's it."
I remember that.
Yeah.
That's it. Y'all are done. Yeah, that show was over. And Noah kept going. I kept going because you can't unplug drums. It's surprising how many times that's come up in my career.
I was throwing the guitar around the room. And
Yeah. And then we basically turned to the crowd and said, everybody grab a piece of equipment and meet us on the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we evacuated that building as if it was on fire before they could call the police on us.
And they were all chanting, "No justice, no peace."
That's right. Because Noah got him started with that.
And can you imagine I know it was mixed with anger with the patrons there, but there was a healthy amount of fear in those guys' eyes.
Oh, definitely. That things were out of control.
I mean, that's a consistent thing though with that band. I know it was happening then, but it became such a commonplace thing that you forget that this is not what normal bands do. Do you really hit that guy? That's a question. You really hit him? Yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah, of course I hit him.
Yeah. Why wouldn't I?
Right.
Well, that's seriously. Yeah. It's the thing where how dare you question me for acting this way?
Yeah.
We used to say, Noah used to say, "You walk a mile in my shoes, they're going to end up being black and blue."
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It was a wild time.
The cops at my house that time, it was Noah's birthday. The cops showed up at mid-set and tried to shut us down.
And we kept playing?
We kept playing, and Noah said, "Fuck you, bitch. Can't you see I'm having a moment?" And I'm like, "Oh, my God." And he looked at me, he's like, "Whatever you do, don't stop playing." I'm like,
right.
And at that point, I fear him more than the police.
Yeah.
And they started chanting then, everyone in the building, "Fuck the police." And the chant of, the NWA song, "Fuck the police." Cops left.
That band was charmed and cursed in equal measure.
And we dedicated most of this conversation to that. I kind of figured that might happen.
Yeah, well, It was a good time.
Yeah.
It was good work.
Somehow we won 3 awards.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Man, I usually wind these things up with a series of 10 questions.
Okay.
You want to do some questions?
Sure.
All right. What is the fondest memory you have of a meal that you've had?
Of a meal?
Yep.
Getting out of prison, and it was the day after my birthday, which is Valentine's Day. My birthday is the day before Valentine's Day, and my grandma, my nanny, fixed me a layer cake for my birthday.
Like chocolate or?
Chocolate, and it's all colored, Inside is all food coloring, so it's like green, purple, yellow, which doesn't add to the flavor, but it tricks your brain into thinking that. That's my favorite meal.
It's pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the most frightened you've ever been?
Frightened. It's a hard one to pick.
Yeah.
My mother and father were married and divorced from each other 3 separate times, and on the third time they decided to get married, my mother and father decided to my father decided to drive and pick a random church and was going to go in and get married, ask them to marry him, which sounds like a really romantic thing, right? But that morning, him and my grandfather got into some sort of debate, an argument, and as we went outside to get in the car, my grandfather needed to get something out of the trunk of the car. And as he popped the trunk, my dad took the trunk lid and started beating him in the head with it. That's the most scared I think I've been. If I could pick one memory, that might have been it.
That's rough.
Yeah. Is that crazy enough?
Yeah. Of all the things you've lost in your life, what is the thing you regret losing the most?
Of anything that I can help, or just anything at all?
Yeah. Wait, I'm sort of interested in that qualifier. What do you mean anything you could help? Anything?
Well, there's things that I've lost that have been my fault, and things that I've lost that were out of my control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know which one.
Yeah, I'm interested kind of a little bit of, I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit about each one of those.
Well, my dad, because we never had a chance to ever meet any common ground anywhere. Not that I think that we could have, but there was never, I don't think I ever reached a level of maturity to really address the situation at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's still, you know, the last conversation that him and I had was horrible, and he was dead 2 weeks later, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one that comes to mind the most, I guess.
You know that John Prine song where he talks about hating graveyards and old pawn shops?
I'm sure I know it. I have.
It's called Souvenirs. My daughter likes it, which, okay, baby, if you're okay with riding around with daddy feeling all his feelings, you know, we can listen to John Prine. Yeah. It's super heavy.
What's it called again?
It's called Souvenirs.
Souvenirs.
Yeah.
I'll make a note of that.
Tell me about a time you received an act of kindness from a stranger.
The first one that comes to mind is Carrie and I were at a Wendy's on our lunch break about 7 years ago, and our card was declined. And we had got food for myself and her, and I think Owen, who wasn't with us at the time, though he was at home, or with his grandmother, excuse me. And we were stressed out, and the guy just paid for our meal. That's the first one I can remember right now.
Yeah. You know, I hear stories like that so often, and like there's this, I think, persistent myth that Americans won't take care of other Americans. You know, like who's going to pay taxes so other people who don't have enough can get enough? And I'm like, have you ever run out of money at a fast food place and seen what happens, or been there when someone else did?
Yeah, it happens at the grocery store consistently too.
I mean, Americans will jump in and help another person so fast. I mean, I've been in other countries, you know, and there's something somewhat unique about Americans in that respect.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Yeah. So I'm always really grateful when I see that happen. What's your favorite place to gig?
I don't think that I have one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really don't. You know, that's nothing against any local club or anything like that. I think, you know, show me the stage.
Yeah.
That's my favorite place tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Visa and income considerations aside, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
Somewhere in Georgia.
Yeah?
Yeah. I love this place.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not very interesting, huh?
No. I mean, it speaks a lot to like sense of place.
I mean, I've moved away several times, which is pretty normal, I think, for Athenians.
Yeah.
They come
yo-yo.
back. Huh? Yo-yo. Yeah.
We call it the yo-yo, the Athens yo-yo. You go to Portland, and then the sun doesn't come out for a month, and you come home.
And you go to Sarasota, and it never gets below 60, and you're like,
right.
Maybe I want to feel something cold.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you have an ideal musical instrument, and if so, do you own it?
Yes. Microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a particular microphone? Doesn't matter?
Whichever one can stand the abuse that I'll give to the show.
So an SM58.
I don't know if it can handle it. I don't know if they've made the one yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a Flying V. So I own both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gibson?
No, it's not. It's maybe you hadn't asked me, I could have told you. It's a weird Japanese V.
Tokai?
You were there when I bought it. It was at Nucci Space. You were coming out of a session, and I was actually I found it under a table there.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, you can have it if you can fix it. You know?
And you fixed it?
I fixed it.
Yeah.
Well, you can buy it.
Is it
You
a
can fix it.
Tokai?
No, man, I can't remember. It starts with an H. I don't know why I can't remember it now.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's ridiculous.
Is there an instrument that you've had to give up, either had it stolen or pawned or had to sell it to make ends meet, that you desperately wish you could have back?
No, I did sell my resonator 2 Christmases ago to Second and Charles, and it broke my heart so bad. I went back the next day and begged if I could have it back, and they're like, this is against protocol, but sure. But no, I've never.
Yeah.
Oh, I've had stuff stolen for sure, but that's happened a lot.
Yeah, but there's not an instrument that got stolen that you think, wish I had that back.
No, there's one instrument that was shattered by Noah that I wish I still had.
That SG?
Yeah, and it was a piece of shit, but I had,
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing, too. After the set, it's actually documented in that documentary, Slow Southern Steel. It's in the trailer the moment he smashes it.
Yeah.
And he walks over to me after the set, and he's like, hey, man, I didn't fuck it up too bad, right? I'm like, look around. And somehow he was pissed at me for breaking it. I mean, we got over it very quickly.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think that piece might be okay,
Yeah. God love him.
If you could be a guest with any artist for one song at a show, who would you guest with? And what would you do? Would you play guitar and sing?
It would be probably Ronnie Van Zant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they have to be alive?
Nope.
No. Yeah. I'd attempt to play guitar behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Particular song?
Traveling Man.
Yeah.
It was never released officially. I think it was like one of the last songs they wrote before the crash. If you have a chance, YouTube it. It's them opening up for the Stones.
Yeah.
And they had one rule at that show. The Stones gave them one rule: don't walk out on the ramp, the tongue.
Oh,
and
yeah, because that
all
was
members except for the drummer did. Like the second song, like fuck you. That's the wrong thing to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Drive-By Truckers had a great quote in The Guardian 2 weeks ago. Like, there's a lot of redneck in us. You don't tell us what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Last question. If you could imagine a taxi that can go anywhere in time or space, and you climb into this taxi and you say to the driver, hey, man, take me home. Where's home?
Probably, man, I'll be honest, right now with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard for me to see any other place being better than that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got 3 kids now?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
11, 5, and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
I appreciate you having me. I love you, man.
I love you too. This has been great.
Don't make me cry anymore today.
Yeah, it's somebody once asked me what's the hardest thing about doing a podcast, and I said saying the word podcast.
Let me try podcast
without like saying cask or something dumb like that, and also not crying when the guests cry.
You didn't? Did you?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it happens. I go there. It's been great. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right. Man, I had so many adventures with that guy. It was a crazy time. Music Hates You was insanity with 2 guitars, a bass, and some drums. It was great to have him here, talk about old times and how much better things are now, really. I mean, let's be honest. I want to thank Jake Kreger, my erstwhile producer. Jake sends me show notes after every show. If the show is better now than it was the first time you heard it, that's because Jake sent me a note that said, man, you should do more of this and less of that. Like, he's been a great producer, and, man, I'm really grateful to have him. Thanks, Jake. Thanks to Gene Wolflick and the band The Powder Room. They provide all of the music that you hear on these episodes. The intro, the little bumper, the stuff at the halftime announcements, and what you hear under my voice now is all music by the band The Powder Room. You can check them out at thepowderroom.bandcamp.com. Gene has a new band called Dream Tent. You can check them out at dreamtent.bandcamp.com. They've got a show coming up. I've heard a rumor. I'll announce it here as soon as I know the actual date because I want you to go see them. Gene's a really amazing musician and a good friend. I want to thank Heil Audio for these 2 PR40 microphones they gave me such a good deal on because they believe in what this podcast is doing. The Heil PR40 is a great mic for snare drum, bass cabinet, what have you. I happen to use it now for broadcast, and guess what? It's a great broadcast mic too. What do you know? The Heil PR40 is very affordable. If you're thinking about upgrading the mics on your podcast, you could do a lot worse than the PR40, and you could spend a lot more money, and it wouldn't sound as good. Go to heilaudio.com for more details. That's HEILAUDIO.com. Heil Audio. All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming back week after week. Thanks for helping to spread the word. Things are going great. This podcast is going great. If you're going to be at South by Southwest, I hope we can hang out. If you want to do an interview, shoot me an email at crashandriot@protonmail.com. In the meantime, until we speak again, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask for help if you need it. Go see live music. Support your favorite band. And remember, loud guitars save lives.